Still think he probably will. Let's give it another minute or so. Carol is not. He has the flu, but also he. Yeah, that's what he thought too.
They call this.
But he's not.
Jesus.
It's like, it feels like it's been a very long. We're just meeting every other month.
I get right.
Meet and then we met and I think you weren't here at the meeting, didn't we?
Okay,
So it feels like.
it feels like forever, man. I miss y'all.
Yeah, it's an easy quorum. Well, why don't we go ahead and call the meeting to order at 5:32. The land acknowledgement first. As we gather today, we acknowledge that Eureka, California is ancestral territory of the Wiyot people. We honor all indigenous people and territories and sovereign governments that share governance within Humboldt County, California. We gather with respect and gratitude to these indigenous people. We thank and honor the indigenous caretakers of this land who continue to cherish and protect it. Their elders have instructed the young to consider the 7 generations ahead as they continue to protect the rights of the land and all people who live on it. We encourage all to align with and follow the lead of local indigenous communities as they steward the land and protect all of its natural resources. We'll have a moment of silence.
Hey,
You want to do the roll call?
Alyssa,
Hi.
Holly, you're absent, and Lance, absent,
Yes.
Larry, present, Jamie, you're present, Jim, present, I'm here, Ellen, Bird, absent, any word from Bird?
No.
Okay, Rick. Present, Aaron, present, Anthony.
Oh, here's.
Oh, there's Bird. Hi, Bird. Hi, Bird.
You're right here.
I got to all the way to the door and remembered there was a pocket knife in my pocket.
You're not gonna make it Oscar?
No.
Sorry, and then when you're in the second.
So I'm sorry, people waiting.
Glad you're.
I'm seeing conspiracies. Hearing aids.
Those are watching.
Oh, okay.
Maxine is absent and Lisa is also absent.
No, Lisa is online.
Is she on there? Okay.
Yes, she
then
is.
She, but.
Martha is present, yes.
Hi.
Okay.
Doesn't the law do that? Hi. Lisa just said hi.
What part of the country are you in?
I'm in Wisconsin. I'm actually Minnesota. I just crossed the border. Minnesota. I'm meeting with the Chippewa tribes.
Oh, okay, she's in agenda adjustment.
Yeah.
You know,
Land
Land of lakes.
To the agenda. Thank you.
She said she's meeting with the tribe, Land of Lakes.
Adjustments. Hi, Lance. We'll next have the approval of the minutes of the January 4th meeting. We didn't meet in February. Any comments made or adjustments made?
So long ago.
I know it.
And then part of that was definitely me. Yeah.
We'll consider the minutes approved as presented.
Okay.
Or switch chairs.
Because we have Guy is ill, he sent his treasurer's report in. For the record, that in our checking account, we have 1,376.92. And in our county budget balance, we have 4,791, full of 450 HC. We will show up on the next bank statement.
Jim,
Yes,
does that, will that go against, which of those two accounts will that go against?
some of it will go against the county budget because that's where I told them to bill for the, like the posters and the Access Humboldt, which was 780. And a couple miscellaneous things. Some of it comes out of the checking account, some of it comes out of the budget.
In the budget, we had a total of 70,000 to start with.
Oh, quite some time ago, but right now it's 4,000.
I know, but I would just think from that point, we've gone down. Approximately.
Gradually, yeah, because some of that went to the human trafficking project as well. So any other questions on the treasurer's report? Okay. At this point, we do have two guest speakers, and one is Bart Silvers from the Arcata Police Department, and the other is Brian Stevens from the Eureka Police Department. And as I was sharing with Bart before you got here, if you could make a brief statement, especially from the point of view of human rights and respecting people's rights, that would be really a good place to start. And then we may have some follow-up questions from the individual commissioners. Who would like to go first?
I'm Bart Silvers, the Chief of Police of Arcata. It's nice to be here. You know, I think that as the city as a whole, obviously we have always that started way back, but you also know that equity in Arcata started in 2017. That is still going today, and that is part or ingrained in our hiring practices. Ingrained in kind of the vision of the city, expand, number one, our knowledge, our training, to really deal with issues that historically have been a struggle for law enforcement. And that goes from a variety of angles for us. Recently, we had, 6 of our officers attend a CIT training that enhances their ability to deal with people who may be suffering mental health crisis or suffer from other disabilities. We are currently looking at new avenues. We just began meetings with Cal Office of Equity and Inclusion. That's going to be, we're hoping to build those relationships, issue that arises, and we can deal with it right up front and have named bases that we're familiar with. And so our goal is to continue moving in that direction with our training. I think Chief Baker had mentioned last year, about 11 months ago, from now or earlier, it's really made us alter our approach. We had to really suck in all of our extra duties to patrol. And since then, we have later that month, last April, our city council approved a hiring bonus, which was the first that I can recall of that size. It was $50,000 at the time. Not having any idea how that would affect us because we had not been trying before. That has been a positive for us. We've been able to acquire 5 lateral officers. And then also we have 3 currently in training, which in turn, go ahead.
How many of the officers that you got under the bonus came from EPD?
2 currently, 1, I believe. So one's not there.
Take somebody 10 miles north.
Yes, okay. If that's unfortunately in this region, that happens. You know, it's, people move around for a variety of reasons. You know, it just got to a point, I believe that they figured out that it would be $50,000 is less than sending a brand new person to an academy training that getting them on the street. And so anyway, those additional people allow us to go out. We have a Arcadia Community Outreach Team, usually a sergeant and 2 officers. They are not on patrol. They are there to address community issues. That can be camps, that can be helping our missed. We have 2 missed individuals that work with our department 4 days a week, 1, 2 days, and then one other 2 days. They have been valuable to us when we go to calls that don't need an officer. We'll get there, we're able to assess it, and we can call them, they come out, and they do a great job handling that kind of stuff for us. So we really try to move to kind of alternate responses. We have community ambassadors as well, primarily in the downtown area right now, and they respond to things, people, businesses calling about someone in the doorway. You know, they pick up trash, they just guide people where they need to be. And so they have been, that was another new thing for us, not knowing how that was going to affect or be successful. It really has been successful, that it frees our officers up to be able to meet their response. And quite frankly, the interactions are better with those folks a lot of times than with police officers. You know, this can be intimidating. And they relate better to, you know, someone coming up to them and, you know, typically it's a green vest, and, you know, a lot of times they'll have a bucket or something that they were working around downtown with. So it's really been nice to have that approach. So.
Chief, do you know what percentage of the folks that you hire are county folk versus those transferring from outside the county?
You know, I don't have a percentage. We have, trying to think this off the top of my head. We do have probably 8 or 9 now that are county, but we do have one from Fresno. We have some from Reading. We have one from Siskiyou right now. The problem, or I shouldn't say the problem, the thing that I think is kind of to do with this region is we get those folks for 2 or 3 years. And then a lot of times they'll go back home. You know, we kind of consider that a success rather than getting somebody for, you know, a year or something, but they'll come and then they just family or for other reasons they want to return.
Have you, you guys meet once a month, all of the chiefs and the sheriff? Have you guys looked at how it is that all the different law enforcement agencies, including Native American, could group together to recruit people from outside the county to Humboldt County together as a unit? Have you thought about that?
I don't think I think we look at it globally like that, but we do, like, we traveled the other day to Siskiyou to an academy and met the sheriff's department over there, Humboldt County Sheriff. We're all recruiting from the same pool. So it's what do the applicants want? Do they want a city type police agency where it's busy, it's constantly going? Or do you want that more rural kind of feel where you can be out in the woods and you can not drive an hour to your next call, but everybody has their own little niche that they want to do. So why fight against each other when we're different types of agencies? Why not work together to try to recruit people to the region and get them to work here? So,
Well, I guess my point is, have you guys gotten together to try and figure out how it is that you're going to recruit from Humboldt residents into the law enforcement agencies, specifically people who live here?
yeah, I think what we do, we started a few years ago, and I think Arcadia does too, but we sponsor recruits through the academy. So we will hire people with no law enforcement experience, put them into the academy, pay for that part of their training. And because that was the big thing we've seen, there's a lot of local people that want to get into law enforcement, but they have families, they have bills to pay. They can't walk away for 6 months and not have an income to fulfill that. So how do we help them? It's not the salary they're going to get as a police officer, of course, but subsidize their current income or subsidize their living arrangements so that they can make it through the academy, come out on the other end. We swear them in the next day. They immediately become, you know, classified as a police officer. They get a pay raise. And we build that loyalty now with them because we brought them in, we paid for things. A lot of times we bring them in a couple months early and bring them into the department and they'll work in different sections of the department, get to know people. So now they have resources when they're in the academy. And if they're struggling or they need help with something, they have all kinds of people they can reach out to. And we have instructors, I think both of us have instructors out at the academy. So kind of watch over them while they're out there too. So that's probably been the most effective way we've gotten some employees and getting employees from our own county is how do we bring them in and be able to pay them enough to get them to live and keep their families, taken well care of, to get them into the age, to get them in the law.
And that comes out of your department's funding?
It does.
And I do think it's, just to add on to that, the 3 that I currently have in training right now, are all Humboldt County. We did exactly what the chief is talking about. We sponsored them through the academy. Now they've come out of the academy and in our training program. Currently have 1 more who's from Humboldt County, in the academy right now. I get that when I started, I started a little later, and exactly the description that he's saying, at that time, I was not married very long and had a child, and have you drop everything and put yourself through the academy when I'm just at that time my wife's salary. So, so it has been very successful for us.
If moving forward, if we can save most of the questions for after those initial statements are made, and we'll move those questions around the room. I didn't know if you had anything
Oh, no.
additional, Bart? Okay. Well, Brian, you want to?
Chief Director Police Department. I was promoted January 4th, the chief. I've been with the agency for 25 years as of February. Spent the last 9 years in an administrative role, so as a captain or the assistant chief. So 9 years dealing with the top echelon of the department and the issues we faced. From the human rights standpoint, from how we treat people, a lot of the same things that the Arcado's doing. Direct Police Department's involved in the crisis intervention training. We sponsor that actually and have instructors in that. We put all our people, both professional staff and sworn, through that because we have just many encounters at our front counter or dispatch has on the phone and our officers have in the field. So it's important for everybody to get that training. A couple of years ago, the city entered into an agreement with a company called Fall Creek for DEI training throughout the city. So we have DEI coordinators within our own department, and they coordinate with the city coordinators, and there's large trainings that are put on. We have resources for that. We have principal policing instructors within our department, and they instruct biannually or every 2 years, I guess, this on principal policing, what that all includes. And then, we look at how do we provide the best service to our community members, especially those that are particularly have substance abuse issues, suffering from some type of mental illness or some types of homeless issues. And because those are some of the most critical and vulnerable people in our community. So how do we treat those? And the city, of course, has had a CSAT NIST team since 2015, I think it is. 2018, we created CSAT around the NIST officers. Now we have an entire team of people that are specially trained to deal with crisis moments. And then we last year brought on CARE, which is the crisis alternative response of Eureka. And now we actually hire and have clinicians, a managing clinician and case managers, so social workers on the city's payroll that work hand in hand with our CSAT team. So from a law enforcement standpoint, it's a great dual response we have right now to a lot of calls. They're able to divert. Jacob Rosen is the manager of that. He just did a presentation Tuesday night at council. But I think they're diverting about 75% of the contacts they have away from holds. And so they're not going to the hospital and all 5150 will have resources. They
Say that again?
about 75% here is diverting clients or people they encounter on the street away from the hospital, away from actually 5150 holds. For our CSAT team and internally within an department, that's probably closer to about 89-90%. Obviously, being in Eureka, we are the hub of all resources, right? I mean, EHHS is here, the hospital's here, SD is here. So we deal with a lot of the aftermath of people that are put on holds and taken to the hospital. Our main issue is trying to maintain the safety of those that work within the hospital, the safety of you and your family members, anybody that has to go to the hospital for any type of services, because when you mix the two, at any given time, there could be 30 people in the ER and they only have 20 some beds, and 12 of those are probably on some type of mental health hold. They are kept in the back hallway of the ER and beds in the hallway. So you can imagine if you're in a crisis moment and you're in an ER, which is the most chaotic place to ever be, even if on the most quietest night, because all you have is all these machines going off and beeping and stuff. So trying to maintain that peace for them. They have people who watch over them or sit with them. But there are triggers for them. And so when those triggers, we try to have those pieces in place so we don't have to go and respond and stop assaults that are happening. There was a period of time right after COVID, during COVID, or after COVID, where the hospital was, they were ready to shut down everything when it comes to the mental health holds, just because the nurses and staff are being assaulted so regularly. We've been able to change a lot of that by diverting a lot of the most problematic cases to the correct locations. And that's typically jail, you know, because they have a mental health component at jail. So if they've committed a crime, that's the best place for them to go, because they can still be held accountable for what they've done, but receive the services that they need. And once their criminal case is over, they can be transferred directly out of the jail to SD. So they're still receiving the services they need there. The one thing, you know, we don't want to put people in the hospital that are violent or under the influence, even though they may be suffering from mental illness. That is just not a safe place for them and anybody else. So we've taken a lot of time and really looked at how do we change how we handle some of the most critical people in our community to provide them the best services, treat them respectfully, treat them with dignity, but also look out for the community as a whole. So that's just some of the programs that we're working on. We're currently this week, we're teaching 125 people. So these are could be business people, could be first responders, police, staff, for 4-hour blocks on autism awareness, de-escalation, CIT, how to write 5150 volts. So like agencies are coming together and sending people to this class so our instructors can teach them the best way to write them so they're more effective. And then also doing some training on, I think it's SB 43, but it's a new law coming out in 2025 about gravely disabled individuals and how that's going to look, because it could really over impact our hospitals and resources that we have, because they want us to put more people on a gravely disabled type hold, and that we just don't have the local capacity to deal with that. So trying to deal with that, and behavioral health is working through that with us and trying to do some training. So
I have a question. When, and this would be true for either department, I would assume, do you know if you take somebody to the jail thinking that that's the best place for them to get some attention for a mental health issue, do you know how quickly a person could expect to get that help?
they're seen immediately upon, they have staff on 24/7.
24/7.
And then they may be triaged at that time, and then having a follow appointment with additional staff that comes in and works during the day to actually provide the services. So much like the hospital. We take somebody to the hospital on the whole, they're triaged, and then the mobile crisis team may come out and check on them. May resend the hold, they may know the resources, they may know their client, another case manager. They may be able to manipulate to give them the best service possible. So it works the same way in the jail. They triage when they come in and mark a box for mental health. A lot of times we'll call ahead because we have the relationships with the staff and tell them, hey, we need to get so-and-so some help, and this is what they're telling us, and trying to give them that background information to make that transition for them to get that help in the jail as quick as possible.
Melissa?
You mentioned DEI training. I imagine that's a diversity, equity, and inclusion training. About kind of what type of subjects are being brought to the force?
We have specific training for law enforcement. So the instructors from Fall Creek actually put on specific training for law enforcement. And then a lot of it was just the integration with the other employees with the city to create that inclusive type environment. So it's, making sure, because what, a public works employee or what economic development employee sees as important to them or what they want out of the workplace is different probably than what law enforcement wants. So probably the biggest thing I think most people got out of it was being heard, and then everybody feeling like they know their place within the city, and we're all working toward a common goal. And so they went through and we did, topics that are important to us, things that are important to us, and seeing how they compare and mix the groups together. So, and then all the other things about microaggressions and groups and, all, everything that's included in that was in there, but there's a lot of work being done on just the city itself, making the city a more inclusive work environment for everyone.
You mentioned that you're all working to a common goal. I'm curious what that is.
What's the best service for the community members that we serve as a city?
That's
So,
fantastic.
yeah.
And then also you mentioned principal placing, and that's something that I've never heard of before.
So it's, again, it's a class that teaches officers about all the background and the history that has gotten us where we are today, but also how to go and address those issues on the street. Be aware of the history and the issues, and then try to.
Historic traumas and stuff like
Yes, and
that.
try to work through that.
Yeah.
Because education is key, knowledge is key. The more we know, the more we can, like, what to expect, how to handle different situations. And that's kind of what the background and foundation of that class is to educate them on that so they can understand when people are coming from, when they feel a certain way. They didn't do anything necessarily. It's the uniform position, it's the authority, and how to work through it.
So I hear that you're doing a lot of different measures to change the culture.
Policing is constantly has to change because our society constantly changes. The society we police changes every day. So the culture of policing, the standards of policing change every day. So like Bart said, it's imperative upon us to stay as progressive as possible and stay ahead of that curve. It's much easier to be ahead of it than it is ever to play catch up after we have a national event happen. And now, we're trying to explain why we do things. I'd much rather we've already done all these things. And I think if you look at some of the recent national events, California had made a bunch of these changes already and use of force and different things that other parts of the country haven't made. Now they're playing catch up on new legislation that came out, but we'd already had a lot of that stuff in place, and we trained completely different. Having both been to the FBI Academy in Quantico, and you have 230 different countries involved and people and agencies from all over the world, and you realize just how far California is ahead of and policing a lot of the other places in the United States, and it's awesome. It's awesome to be in that role.
That was my question. I was curious if you liked that.
It's a lot of work for us, but
Yeah.
I'd rather do the work ahead of time and then have to play the catch up game at the time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Rick?
Training. Who is it that you guys hire to train your officers?
So a lot of our officers have gone to class, it's called train the trainer. So they'll go to the class and be taught on how to train and how to be the instructor for a course. So that's everything from our weapons to our defensive tactics, defensive policing, to de-escalation. I think we almost have instructors in every single aspect of our department that we need to train on. We have in-house instructors that have
So
been,
you do it internally,
yes.
and you?
We do, not to the degree Rika has, we just haven't got as many in-house trainers. But a lot of the times we'll get, we got principal policing from ICAP, which is a national agency. But it's the same type of training. But, I think the biggest thing for us, and I think law enforcement is really, kind of piggybacking off what he said, is us in law enforcement being able to realize our response to somebody. Being able to recognize who we're dealing with and why this person may be acting the way they are. And for the longest time, that time wasn't taken on our end. To really kind of try and figure it out or figure out our response or measure our response based on them. Obviously in law enforcement, there may be times that is not a possibility. So
I assume that you guys saw 8 months ago a reveal about the largest private police training agency in the country. There was a video of one of the instructors who used the N-word throughout his presentation. He used slurs for homeless, and he was a instructor for the largest police training group in the country. My assumption is that you guys don't work with him.
I have never
I
been.
don't know what organization you're talking about, but no, our instructors, so all of our classes that we put on have to be approved by the Peace Officers Standard and Training of California. So we have to submit outlines to them, and they have to say, yes, this meets the criteria for this course, and we'll give you credit for it.
Okay.
The classes we go to and get our trainers trained up on that have to be the same classes that are approved by the same organization post. So they hire the instructors for those. So this is a state run, this isn't private. Almost all of our stuff is state run or approved by the state, even if it's a private organization, because we need to get credit for the training. And to get credit for the training, it's got to be approved by a post. So there's a lot of oversight in what happens in California.
Okay.
Which is one major difference. When you mentioned the National Academy, is one major difference California has over many other states. It's just the training requirements for their officer.
We have a couple of questions over here. Rick was first and then Bert.
Okay. One of the things that I encountered on the civil grand jury, as we also interview, homeless and people with various ethnic groups and so on, is that there were some concerns that some individual officers often came with a prejudgment, like they did not, and didn't, they had judgments about homeless, sometimes about also different ethnic groups. And I think it was clear this was not a broad statement. This was that it was individual sometimes that they encountered. And I would imagine that no matter how well you do, people will come in who still have strong feelings maybe about particular groups. How do you identify people who may be having some problems with some of the specific groups? And how do you deal with that? How do you respond to that?
So I think a lot of this is weeded out in the hiring process. So both we do psychological, polygraph type work, medical, and then we do a lot of social media mining. So if it's something that has been historically that they've been publicizing, we usually find out about it. So before we hire them, we look for those types of specific behaviors. And when you do that, you can't, if we can generate robots that are perfect, I mean, it would be a different world, right? We would program them the way we want to do things. But we may have a great officer that has a bad moment, and we have that. So a lot of it is complaint driven. So if we get a complaint from an advocate, complaint from a member of our community, that's generally how we find that somebody has been rude, discourteous, or has had something like that. We all wear body cameras now. We can go back and watch the incident. We can go over it. If it's a policy violation that rises to that level, it can be investigated. If it's something that's a trainable moment, something that needs to be handled from a different level, then it still gets addressed. It just matters on what the severity is. But once it becomes a known, then it's something we can monitor. We have a misconduct reporting policy. You're mandated in your police department. If you witness misconduct, no matter what type of misconduct it is, you are to report it to your supervisor. Almost all the calls that our officers go on are 2-officer calls, especially when it comes to dealing with somebody causing a disturbance, somebody, a municipal code violation for camping, our CTED team working out in the green belt with our park rangers and stuff. So there's almost always more than one officer there. So there's a lot of self-checking that goes on too with that. And the body cameras are a great tool. They will usually, most of the time, keep people on the straight and narrow because they know that they're being watched. So if you're having a bad day, you try to find that inner strength to put everything else aside and deal with just what's in front of you and deal with it the right way.
Yes, for Bart, I know April is coming up and every year the media splashes things all over about Josiah Lawson. And I just wonder, are you doing anything to prepare for that? Have you made any progress in that? And how do you deal with that when it comes up? Because I know it does every year.
It does come up every year, but it's gotten to where it is, they come together usually on the plaza to honor him. And we don't have any issues around it. They do a great job. Usually Charmaine will come up, his mom. I know she does a co-drive as well, during the winter. And so, we are still committed to that investigation. We will, thoroughly investigate any information that comes in. We still have the tip line. So, we haven't lost sight of it. There's not a whole lot of information at this point really coming in. But, we will take whatever we get and do what we can to advance it further. But as far as the yearly every April, that has become more of a celebration for him.
Thank you.
Rick?
Just, for Chief Stevens, one question, you probably can't tell much more, but I still am a little bit troubled by the anti-Semitic sign that was left in the hospital. And I'm wondering if that is an ongoing investigation, if there's an active attempt to get more information right now, if you're just simply waiting until perhaps more information comes in, what's the status of that?
I have to be honest.
That's mine, actually.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was my. Yes.
Right.
Yes, we. Go ahead. It's- No, we actually, sign, they actually did an 100 on the sign, which would show any kind of fingerprints at all. However, it was in a public bathroom. But we looked at video, it was determined it appears to be inside the bathroom. So obviously there is not a video inside of the bathroom. And there's some variation in time when it was put up. And when people noticed it, but as far as knowing exactly who did it at what time, that's very difficult. We're trying to narrow down time frame at this point, but like I said, there's not going to be a video inside of a restroom. We didn't have somebody that said, I was in there at 5 o'clock and at 5:10 it was there. So it's very difficult to kind of nail down where that who that came from.
Sorry for that.
No. I mean, we've had incidents too, and you're giving out the Harry Park ride recently with the hurricane on the mural, and we had a leaflets that are dropped, and talk to Nancy and AD all the time about things that go on up here, so trying to stay in touch with her. And then most of you probably saw the incident with Crescent City's council meeting the other day, so we were prepping for that last Tuesday when our council meeting started. It was going to be a kind of a nationwide thing right now. We're calling from all places and just to disrupt and share hate speech like that. So fortunately, it didn't happen to us, and hopefully it doesn't. So the city is looking at ways that we can.
Have to be the last question.
It's a good one. Recently, the Human Rights Commission and the League of Women Voters put on a conference to discuss with a panel the difference between free speech and hate speech. You guys are responsible for knowing that, precisely what the difference is. And I was curious if you'd be willing to share any of that information with us, the difference between free speech and hate speech.
For us, as these things come in, we will consult if we have any questions, like with our DA's office. The leaflets that we had the same thing where it is general comments about groups and stuff like that, which was a learning curve for us as these things are dropped all over Arcata. The bathroom incident, we reached out and said, hey, where this seems to be. And, so as it's calling for the thing on the bathroom sticker, if you will, that was calling for violence specific against a specific group. So as we consulted with the DA's office, they were like, yes, that definitely rises to the level of hate crime. So for us, if there's any question, we're going to definitely reach out and make sure that we're going to investigate it and document it either way. But obviously, if it's hate speech versus a hate incident, those are two different things. Well,
It's a gray area. It really is. There's so much under free speech, and rightfully so. That should be free speech, and I think you really have to tie it to some violent act or the propensity for some violent act or call for violent act to happen before it becomes a crime. And I think that's why, Crescent City couldn't shut that down. they try to find ways to manipulate Zoom and manipulate the meeting around it. You can't really shut down just people sharing their opinions, expressions, and laws are not calling upon, you know, everybody to rise up and take action against or something to that effect. So, hate crimes usually generate from, you have whatever the trigger is. So we had a vehicle that was vandalized and burned. Well, when they wrote the N-word on there and then they burned the vehicles,
That
now we have a hate
shows.
crime. So it's not just the speech. There's some action that follows the speech that then moves it into the different realm of a violent act or the potential for a violent act to happen, or you want to fight somebody and use a specific word to upset them, so then you get into a fight. That's a hate crime.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, thank you.
I have one last question, since you represent two different communities. The city of Eureka has Humboldt Equity Consortium, which is a group that includes representatives from the Human Rights Commission, Equity Arcata, a variety of groups. Have you ever considered dropping in on one of their meetings to hear what they're talking about? Because they represent just about every subgroup in the Humboldt County area.
Yeah, I can say I have not. I promoted in December, which is, it's been a little bit of a whirlwind at this point, you know, trying to get everything. So that is not something that is, you know, I appreciate the information for.
Well, I'll share it with the chair and see if maybe they can invite you to one of their meetings, because either together or separately, it doesn't matter. It might be a good exchange for that group as well.
Yeah, I was looking forward to the opportunity to do it, or just to attend a meeting, so you can just know when the meetings are.
Yeah.
Or send a representative, so I appreciate it.
Great. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We'll let you do whatever it is you're going to do.
Have a basketball game and watch. It's true to heroes. So.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for.
Thank you all.
Have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, I am assuming we don't have any public comment because there's nobody showing aside from Lisa, so we'll move right along. On communications, commission communications, I have several different minor things to make note of. One is we are absent one of our members, and I wanted to announce that Kimberly Wiley has resigned from the commission. It's unfortunate. She gave me this notice prior to our February meeting, which we didn't have. So this is the first time I've had an opportunity to announce that. Yeah. I wanted to remind everybody that we did have a tour of the juvenile hall with Ray Watson and his staff. And it was very enlightening. They've got a wonderful facility there compared to the old one. Yeah, absolutely. And although we could talk about it more in another part of the agenda, I just wanted to thank everybody, the League of Women Voters, and especially Rick for chairing the committee on the hate speech versus free speech forum. And hopefully you've all received your own personal copy of the video. It's an hour and 40 minutes long, and it will be modified in one respect. Access Humboldt didn't have our most current logo, but they do now, and they're going to edit that film so that it includes the new logo.
Jim, just one quick question. I sent it out to the committee. Did someone else send it out to the general membership?
No.
Okay, so that's, I think, maybe something that should be better.
Thanks for saying that, Rick. 'cause
You're
I was
right.
like, did I miss
You're
it?
right. I aimed that at you so that you would get it to the committee, but that doesn't reach everybody else. So we'll make sure that happens.
It's a great, I mean, the video really captures that whole.
I think it did too.
And is it something that I can share? Like I can share with students?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then the last thing, Nazanin isn't here right now, but she and I have both volunteered to be the administrators for our Facebook account. Believe it or not, we have 800 and some followers on
Wow.
Facebook, and yet we've been producing no new content for them for a very long time. And I see that the CAO's office posted to our account our new logo, which pleased me because they're helping us to get activated. And so once Nazanin and I get together and we have to fill out some forms for the county to be in that position, she's very anxious to get input from all of you as to what kind of content ought to be on that Facebook page. And maybe we can start reaching more people quicker. Good. Are there any commissioners that have any comments or offerings? Yes.
I do have, an announcement from the League of Women Voters. Our biggest only fundraiser is coming up April 19th, and I have invitations to it if anybody would like one. Jim and Rick, you're getting one anyway because I know you well enough. If anybody else would like one, I have them, and see me after the meeting and I will give you one. Just because I give you one doesn't mean you have to go, but I'd like everybody to know about it. Thank you.
Any other announcements or comments?
AT&T, I don't know if you guys have heard, but they want to pull out as of providing landline service to the state of California. It came to our notice, and I created a flyer with links to be able to make comments for individuals to participate. And I was hoping to share it on the Human Rights Commission Facebook page.
Well, you might have one of the, when's that happening? Or that's going on right now.
It's going on right now. You can make public comment right now at the CPUC website. And then there's also a meeting, I think it's around March 18th, but I'm not sure right now because I don't have it in front of me. But there's still time to be able to make it in person or by Zoom meeting comment as well. And there are already thousands of comments on the CPUC website, so.
I didn't know that it was the entire state. I thought it was just certain areas within the state.
Well, it's the areas that they provide landline service to, which is pretty much the entire state. Those are they just want to pull out as the carrier of last resort. And then they say that, you know, if they pull out as a carrier of last resort to support those landlines, then, you know, supposedly other carriers that provide service in the areas similar to or around will take over as a carrier of last resort, but that's not what that's not looking like it'll be a supported thing that will allow for landlines to continue to exist. People who have, you know, emergencies, they require their landline to work to be able to like push their emergency buttons to get emergency services. And also when there's storms or power goes out, you know, what if you don't have a cell phone that's working, or what if you live in an area that's so far out that you do not have a cell phone reception and only your landline can get through? So it's a thing that highly impacts individuals who live with disabilities and also live rural and also live low with low economic status. So it's really important.
You don't have to be a customer of AT&T to comment, do you?
No, you do not. It is open to any commenters, and so anyone who is concerned with their ability to be able to use a landline, it would behoove them to reach out and do some sort of self-advocacy in the situation.
So will you send out that
That's what I was about to ask too.
Yeah, I have, put the link, the flyer and all the contact, links, all labeled onto our Tri-County Independent Living website. Facebook site. And I can send that link to you so that you can have it posted also on maybe the League of Women Voters and also, maybe the Human Rights Commission.
Sure, that'd be great if you would.
You just
Thank
send
you.
out the link for everybody. that we can-
Right.
Okay, well, I'll send it to you, Jim.
Okay, I'll share.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments, announcements? Okay. Correctional Facilities Liaison Report. Is there anything to share?
Well, we had, I think, 6 calls in jail over the period, I think, from, I think one came in January. Nothing really, I could go over the details, though. 2 of the people that called were released before I could get back to them. One important thing is that Kim, while it was a late, she had volunteered to take call from female inmates. And since then, I've been doing that, but I was hoping that we could get female to step up. It's not anything that happens a lot. And it would be, would come into me, and then if it's a female, I would refer that call to whoever was interested in responding. Again, it's not rocket science. We can't provide any kind of legal advice, but we can listen within a sympathetic sphere. And being in the community for a long time, we know resources are out there, and oftentimes, one of the cases was that they just appreciated someone to listen to them, and we have an excellent liaison with the county jail. Bryce Arnold is her name, and what happens oftentimes is when we get a jail call, I'll talk with Bryce about the situation. She'll look into it and help us, move forward. So anyway, if there's anybody wants to do that, let me know.
I think we have a volunteer.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
I think you need to notify the price.
Yeah, I'll notify Bryce, and there'll be a little form that she'll have you fill out.
Okay.
But it'll be all done on computers.
And the reason that even comes up right now is because just yesterday, I think it was yesterday, we got a call from a female inmate. And although I think she thought we had information that we don't have, nevertheless, if you were able to respond or refer that call for one thing or another, that'd be good, because a female will usually want to speak to another female. And
I did, Jim, talk to Bryce about that call, and she was going to look into it.
yeah, she was looking for resource information
They have a lot of those.
that really wasn't the kind that we have.
So anyway, that's it. Great. They have on board.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. And the only, we'll skip the December message line reports, but starting in February, Erin, you had the 1st through the 15th.
Yeah, I thought I'd already forwarded on, because I remember pulling it up in different, but
Oh, well, it's possible I'm repeating, but
let me pull it up. We had 3 from the jail. One we didn't find, didn't leave a number. And one calling, from Tri-County Assisted Living. And what the. Yeah, it was a. They were calling to verify something or something. Yeah, so I didn't get anything that was like, not jail, someone asking for assistance.
Okay, thank you.
If someone calls from an assisted living facility, there are ombudsmen at the Senior Resource Center that can help.
But you said Tri-County, didn't you?
Yeah.
A Tri-County Assisted Living.
Is that so? That's an entity? I'm not familiar with it.
It's not Tri-County Independent Living. It's assisted living community.
Okay. All right, Bert.
Well, I have to apologize because I completely spaced it and I didn't even remember that I was supposed to be on the phones until Jim called me. The first couple of calls that I got were 2 hours and 1 hour before the forum, asking where it was and could somebody be interviewed? And of course, I was already there. There was no way I was even getting those calls until after I got home. But I did call them back and let them know, I know that the interview happened. And just to let them know that their call had gone through and it was just too late for any reply before the forum started. I had called that I sent to Larry, and I'm sure Larry dealt with it from the jail. And there was one other call, which I left on for Jim to listen to if he wanted to. And that was from someone who said he was 70 and he was being discriminated against on all sorts of levels, including the fact that he was in a wheelchair and that he was not allowed in specific restaurants because of his wheelchair. And he called a couple of times and I called and talked with him. And he wanted to know what he could do and I gave him the legal numbers that are on our list. And then he called me back on my private number at 10:30 at night. And I asked him not to do that, to call the line. But he said that he sounded really paranoid. He sounded like he just needed to be listened to, but it didn't sound, it sounded like he was mad at everybody. And then he said that he couldn't get to the county because that's when the county numbers were down, and he called me again. So I blocked him. He can't call me anymore, but that was a problem when the county line was down and people couldn't get through. I couldn't get through, and Jim, you couldn't get through either.
No.
So there was a week, I think, there where our line was down and people couldn't get in. So anyway, I apologize for not answering for 4 or 5 days that I was supposed to. Next time I will hope that somebody will tell me before. So
I'll check in soon.
check in to say you're on, because I didn't write it down in my calendar.
Yes, there's protocol is that, if you volunteer to be one of these phone answers, call the person next, coming up after you and remind them that they're on the
That
phone.
is helpful.
It really
It's very
is helpful.
Yeah.
It's helpful.
And also tell them about the star 73 function,
Star 67.
star 67 function.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
To block your own phone.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
number is
And-
revealed.
And I was wrong. There isn't a Tri-County Assisted Living. It was probably about Tri-County.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
So what is the star?
It's star 67,
Star 67.
and then you put in,
The number.
then you dial
The
that.
number, thank you. I knew there was something, but I didn't know what it was to do.
Well, you don't want to be getting calls.
I knew how to
11 o'clock
block
at
it,
night.
so I did that.
I picked up March 1st through the present, and I had the one call, which was the female inmate, which I referred to Larry, so I don't have anything else to report than that. I do need volunteers for March 15th through the 31st, April 1st through the 15th, and April 16th through the 30th.
I can do 15th through the 31st, but I'm gonna, that nifty little email we were sending around that had the link to the spreadsheet and
You
everything.
need that again?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other
I'll
volunteers?
take April 16th to the 30th.
Okay, and how about April 15th, or 1st through the 15th? You can? Okay. All right, we're covered then. for-
Alexa, send me the email, so don't forget.
I will.
I will forget.
Yeah.
All right, next item on the agenda is standing committee reports. First being the Sanctuary Ordinance Committee. There is nothing really to report there, except that the group that I referred to earlier, the Humboldt Equity Consortium, does include Centro de Pueblo and Equity Arcata, and they are both interested in getting any and all information about the county's sanctuary ordinance as it stands right at the moment. We're charged with implementing or at least investigating anything that comes to our attention. These groups didn't even know that this existed. So I'm waiting on the county to provide the information so I can turn it around and present it to them. The next committee reports are ad hoc committees. And since Carol is not here, I don't believe Cultural Awareness Committee has met.
Not that I know of.
Which takes us to the Free Speech versus Hate Speech Forum. And Rick, would you like to fill us in on what we don't already know?
Okay, well, probably you know most of it. It was held on February the 21st. There were about 100 who attended that, including the participants. As Jim mentioned earlier, there is a draft video in which you can see pretty much that whole forum. And generally, my sense was that it was really well organized by the league in terms of conducting it, carrying it out. My impression also was that the participants were really excellent. There were times when I thought, I'd like to give an opinion, and I realized they were just very stimulating and thought-provoking and giving some really good feedback, some good information to the community. I think costs are being generally handled right now. Guy is not here directly, but I think that pretty much all the billing that should be done is being done. I was going to give Guy a check for the kitchen, but I can just mail that on to him. But I'm happy to do that. And I think with that, I'm open for questions. If anyone has questions or some reflections on the committee. The committee will meet again on Monday, where we'll go over kind of just what went well, what we might do different, maybe future directions that we're going to be taking, and we'll do that on Monday at the Zoom meeting.
Rick, is that included the league? Is
Yes.
The whole,
Yes.
whole
If I could add to that, yeah, please. I sent emails thanking to the two people that I was responsible for recruiting for the panel. And both of them responded to me and said they really enjoyed being there. They were happy to have been invited. And if we had future events, they were interested in being contacted. Sharon Blank said that she would like to be involved again. The league had a board meeting on Monday night, and the league was pleased with the way it went, but if there are future events that are more interactive and not the kind of forum that we did, the league, that isn't something that the league does. So if the commission decides to do some more interactive kinds of things, I think Sharon would be a good person, and Mary Jelena said, oh, she said she would not participate in this one that we've had, but she was interested in more interactive ones. So those are two people that the commission should be thinking about if we decide we want to do anything in the future that's more interactive.
I'm not familiar with the second name.
Mary Jolinas, she's a consultant and she's written a book about communication. She writes blogs, she's well equipped to do that kind of thing.
Or would she be willing to participate without being paid?
She was interested if it was going to be an interactive kind of thing. We didn't really discuss payment, but she didn't say that she would have to be paid. So I don't know. That would be something that we have to find out.
Mary is like at the top of the pyramid,
Yeah,
and
she's very good.
she is incredible. I've worked with Mary over the last 20 years several times, and I've always been impressed.
I've worked with her many times too.
Alyssa?
I just wanted to say that I was there and watching from the back, and it was wonderful to see it happen. It was an incredible first time. I could definitely see it blossoming into something, you know, that we do in our community on a regular basis. And I am really proud of you guys for doing this. Thank you.
I was really pleased that we had 2 county supervisors and at least 2 Eureka City Council people
Yeah.
present, and that showed some serious interest. Yes, Lance?
Yeah, I've got some feedback. I had some issues, have some issues with the subcommittee that we put together for developing the structure and process. And I'm going to bring that to the meeting next Monday to talk about the process. I have thoughts, rather than being critical of the meeting, and I do have some criticism for it, I would rather try and put that into a positive statement. I would really strongly recommend that should the Human Rights Commission want to do this again, that we need to not have the faith-based community represented. That was a mistake. And I think that we can do better.
The only thing I thought was a mistake was that more religious individuals or varied religions weren't present. Like just not being able to have the conversation from as many different perspectives. Maybe we could do one meeting where it's more about the different world religions and one meeting where it's about, you know, different marginalized communities, like the first one. Like I didn't see the disability representation there. And I was like, oh man, that would have been awesome.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Yes. It was very difficult. If we
Yeah.
wanted to involve every group, we would have had 25, 30, 35
Right.
people up there. We couldn't
Right.
do that. We did not specifically choose a specific face. We chose someone who has spent his time in the community trying to bring together faiths. And that's why we chose the person that we did.
Bird, go ahead.
So, and so we were not trying to, we were looking for people who would be able to not specifically represent one of the groups that had been targeted, but who would be able to speak to the community in a way that was broader than just a group. And it was a very difficult thing to do, to find this. I know we also had someone challenge me and said, you should have had somebody, a legal person there. And I said, well, you know, we did ask, and he said no, but it was a very, very difficult situation to come up with 6 people so that it wasn't too big and so that we would be able to do this in 2 hours. I understand that there were people who were concerned that we didn't have a specific representation from their group or a group they thought should be there. And I do understand that, but we did the best we could in terms of trying to bring together some people who would be able to speak to the community in a way that wasn't just from one perspective, but that was maybe from several different perspectives.
I have a response to that. I said from the very beginning, do not do faith-based. Do not have anybody representing anybody from the faith-based community to talk about these issues. Because you're right, there's no way that you're going to get 6 or 7 different denominations represented in a free speech, hate speech forum. So the only way to deal with that, instead of bringing a rabbi wearing a skull cap, who then proceeded to talk about Jews in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago, that was his initial prompt, which is a go-to for why Jews should be in Jerusalem and Palestinians should not. So I really did not like his presentation from the get-go. And frankly, I got up and left because I'm not going to sit there with 30,000 Palestinians dead, slaughtered, 20,000 women and children, while a rabbi purports to speak to various religious faiths in the county, because he doesn't.
The activism.
That was my first issue. The second issue I had was LGBTQ, which I understand was the reason why this whole process was initiated. And yet, during the meeting, no one spoke to it. No one addressed it. The representative who was on that committee, theoretically representing the gay community, said nothing about hate speech. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So if we're going to have somebody representing the community, we need to have someone who's an advocate who can talk about what that's like, because he didn't.
Thomas talked about it.
He didn't mention that the reason that he was invited was to talk about LGBTQ.
That isn't the reason he was invited.
Why was he?
He was invited because he was recommended to us as a person who was articulate, community-minded, and could speak well to the community about communication within the community.
So
The fact that
it was
he
never an item that we wanted an LGBTQ person on the panel.
that
That never came up.
was not the reason he was chosen.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to take that
I'm
question.
sorry, but I mean, I don't want to argue with you.
Remember, we do have a meeting coming up. We can hash out what could have been better, what could have been.
Yeah, I think a bunch of this might be better left for the Monday meeting.
Yeah,
Well,
Closer here.
can I disagree? I think it's good for the people who are not on that committee to hear some of these too. I'm sorry. I respect the fact that Lance is willing to stand up here and say, I disagree. Because, and I'm going to say the same thing, because I know what I did and how we tried to do the best we could. And it wasn't good enough for you, and maybe it wasn't good enough for some other
Well, the
people.
problem was that we agreed in the beginning that we wouldn't have a faith-based representative. I went away for 2 weeks and I came back and we did again. So that's my process with the committee. I felt like it was disingenuous. And so that's where my irritation lies. And I do think for future reference, LGBTQ needs to be on the days.
And that brings me to the one point I wanted to make. I think it needed to be represented more than it turned out to be. But keep in mind, the one person that really said the most about LGBTQ hate in the county is a faith-based person.
Yeah.
And so if we don't have faith-based people present, including the ones that might be instigating the problem, that's something we need to work on. I think that issue is still alive. I think I take it personally. But I'm not exactly sure how we address it, but there was a faith-based element initially going to be part of it. And it was decided to back away from that for different reasons. And that's how we ended up with the panel we did. Jamie?
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if maybe mine should be the last comment, but, so if somebody else has something to finish.
We can cut it off.
I just wanted to say, I really enjoyed it. I went to the panel and I, enjoyed it and I looked around, and my only kind of critique was the lack of, diversity in people who showed up. That made me a little bit sad. And so thinking about how to do outreach in a different way it was my kind of piece. But, kind of in regard to this conversation here, I think that one of the things that was beautiful about it wasn't that people were representing some like larger group. It's that they were there sharing their stories. Like, I don't think we should be asking people to come in and represent a whole entire group or demographic. I think we ask people to come in, and if you have something to say about this, that's affected you personally, whether that's related to like a component of your identity or your community or what that is, that's what they're bringing to that. They're not, I mean, I would have been really upset, honestly, if one of the people had said, everybody in this community experiences this. Like, I don't think that that's fair to do. But bringing in their own story is really important and really powerful. And I could totally see a series of like, yeah, there were some voices missing, and let's bring in some people who have those voices and like keep doing it. Because the more you do it, the more voices and the more stories you get. I think it can go deeper. I thought it was beautiful. I was very happy about it. And thank you that you all did the work.
Thank you for understanding why we chose the people.
I was afraid to be on that subcommittee, I'm not gonna lie. And I just mentally wasn't in a space to do that at the time you did it. And I really honor and respect the fact you did it.
Well, we do have future work to do, and we'll hammer out. Oh, I'm sorry. Aaron.
I basically had two very similar comments. So one, I did pop in for a little bit, and it was so cold that I was like, oh, I'm gonna cause a ruckus if I stayed out in the hallway, but would love to see more diversity. And I think that's one thing we need to tie into our social media is like having event invites and like being able to post details on that. Cause like no one I know was looking at those flyers. Like,
Yeah, I'm afraid that's,
you have to have an event, like a link to, if you're gonna have Facebook, it has to be like a Facebook event, and we also need to get an Instagram. Which shouldn't be that hard because it's all under the same company.
The police chief's brought up an interesting issue. I thought it really isn't about free speech versus hate speech. It's about free speech versus hate crime. Hate speech is what it is. We all know it, but it's free speech versus hate crime. That really is the issue. When does that cross over from speech to being criminal? And, you know, we didn't really talk about that with the two chiefs, but I think that's something we need to talk about. When does that cross the line to hate crime?
They actually said
Can I
that.
make sure that Aaron finish?
So, the other thing I was just gonna say is like, yeah, it's not fair to ask people to represent everyone in their like specific community. Like, I'm never gonna represent like all queer people, like, and don't ever ask me, you know?
And we did not ask
Yeah.
them. That is not how they were asked to participate.
there might be some people that would be comfortable in that role.
Yeah.
But not everybody is going to be. But I think we've got some good basis to move forward, to decide what we should focus on and who should be part of that. I don't think it'll be another big forum like the one we had, because we simply can't sustain that. But we can continue the conversation. I have a feeling that Access Humboldt will be very interested in working with us in whatever that looks like, but we'll wait to hear what the committee comes up with after March 11th. Oh, I'm sorry, Larry.
You know, I know, I understand Bird's comment about the league not wanting to do anything that's outside of the realm of that particular forum kind of approach, but man, you've got some really very powerful people in the and in the league. And I would hope that we can get them to be involved in the future, forums or whatever we decide to do.
Even if the,
Very interesting.
even if the format is different.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. The next two committees, I don't believe have anything to report. This is homelessness and behavioral health. And
Can I say something about homelessness?
you bet, but you also can do a report on the indigenous.
Okay, I will. I'll do it in both. I don't care. What would you like? You want to report on indigenous or?
Let's address the homelessness and behavioral health, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Okay, I just remember that at one point we were asking the county to do something about responding to the needs of the 1,500 homeless people, and I don't think we ever got a response back from the board, did we? And anyway, I just want to just make mention of it that I'd love to see more kind of drives or direct services go to that space for the people that don't have shelter in the dead of winter.
All right, and I'll make sure that I share that request with Guy, who is chair of that committee, and we'll get back on track.
Okay, great.
And then, do you have anything to share on indigenous people? I don't know if your committee's met recently.
We haven't. I've been on a road quite a bit. I probably should not chair it at the to try to gather people together, because the times that I have tried to get people together, I don't get it. We're not aligning on that, but I can share with you that I'm involved with the offshore wind project that is happening, and in making sure that indigenous voices and participation are involved in that whole situation that's happening out there. One point I do want to share is that as an indigenous person, we weren't called into the space of this whole project until it was already decided and done. So getting our input in after the fact was, because this thing we should have been involved in it, probably 6 or 7 years ago, and we weren't. But anyway, I just want to make us aware of that. I'm in communication with Daniel V. Hill Maston, who is the head of the missing and murdered people, and we keep in communication, often. But other than that, I wanted to circle back to a letter that was drafted several months ago. Request. I don't know if it had been approved in my absence, but I would like for it to be approved if it hasn't, and if we need to review it. But it was a recommendation to have a committee specific for tribes to have their own commission, so that they have direct connection to the county board of supervisors, because there's really no liaison. This is only I don't know of any other, even as a subcommittee, that addresses the indigenous people of Humboldt. And there's so many more issues involved, not just murdered, missing people and all of that, but I would really like to see a direct relationships with the tribes and the county, because there's just so much there's a shared jurisdiction of common lands. And it's in our first statement that we make in the beginning. So it'd be good for that relationship to exist in that way. And that's my recommendation. And I had a letter that I drafted several months ago to ask for support for that.
Lisa, could you reshare that letter with the other member or with me, and then I can pass it on to the other commissioners?
Yes, I'll do that.
And related to that subject, I don't know if this has been mentioned before or not, but a grand jury in the last 2 years at least, did make that very recommendation to the County Board of Supervisors that there be an Indigenous liaison position created and funded within the county, and the county decided not to support or agree with that recommendation. We can't bring it up again, and I think probably we should, because it seems like a relatively simple solution for relatively low cost for the county, and I think it would do a lot of good.
Yeah, I did too. There's shared resources and grants that they could be going after if there was more collaboration between the two, the governing, bodies of the land that we're all inhabiting. So it'd be better for the county than not.
I mean, it has to come out of general funds. It could be supported some other way. They just have to get a little creative about how they want to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you
And have we? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, if you'll supply that draft again, we could bring it up again and start over.
Okay, great. All right, super. Thanks, Jim.
Sure. Any other comments or questions for Lisa? Okay, well, thank you, Lisa, wherever you are.
Well, if I could share with you guys too, just so you guys know what I'm doing, I'm actually leading transfer of knowledge of the professional hempcrete industry from France to North America, and I'm helping drop it into Humboldt so that we can have bio-based materials in our backyard for building and construction, and working with veterans and Indigenous people and underserved communities is the focus. So it's very housing centered. Anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
Yep.
And the last item on the last committee report anyway, is the Youth Human Rights Commission. And Jamie.
Yeah, so we haven't met. I apologize. I feel like I've been sick a lot this year, but I was sick and then busy and not able to do that. But we do have I've been interacting with Arnold King.
Yes.
Keep forgetting something, but Arnold King, who is the principal at Academy of the Redwoods, which is located down at CR, and Jim had met with him prior to that. Arnold is super interesting. After Jim met with him, he took up this cause of gathering students together to generate and develop this Youth Human Rights Commission. And so he's identified 11 students. He has a class that they're in that they want to support the development of it through. So we've been invited to meet with him. We had a little bit of a problem with scheduling because he kept emailing me and the form he was emailing me wasn't accessible to anyone outside of their system. So finally he just emailed me some dates. I think March 21st is where we've settled. Kente Johnson from CR will also be there. The meeting's 12 to 1:15. I'm just waiting for final confirmation on that, but I'll be reaching out to committee members to see, and anyone else is interested, to see if anyone's interested in attending. I also don't know yet if it's going to be via Zoom or in person. I told Arnold I could come there in person if needed. I think what he wants is for us to do just a little bit of a presentation. I kind of felt like where we are with this and what our interest is and what our vision is. And then I told him perhaps I could facilitate something with the students that would help them kind of get in the mindset of planning and thinking of an action plan to move it forward. So hopefully, hopefully that all works out and, we get to do that. But yeah, so that's kind of where we are with that.
So we'll keep the committee members, in case you've forgotten who you are. That's Jamie, Bird, Alyssa, and Bella.
Yep.
So if any, either combination of an in-person or Zoom meeting works out for you, at that time, we'll give you the information. So you can-
As soon as I hear back, I got an email right before I came here from Kente confirming he's available. So as soon as I hear back, I assume it'll be in the next day or two, maybe tomorrow. From Arnold, I will send that out to the committee so you can get on your calendars. But tentatively, we're on March 21st.
Nice thing is that we originally approached this from the idea that it had to be an offshoot, direct offshoot of the Human Rights Commission. And that ran into a bunch of barriers as far as the county goes, with the Brown Act and so forth. If this is a student organized thing and all there is a tethered liaison between the two, I think we have a chance of making it much simpler. So, and the one thing we do need to do is to create a new expiration date for this committee.
What? No, it's a
Well,
24. It's 24.
Oh, excuse me. Never mind.
You have to be. This is a late year, right?
I saw 12/31 and I just automatically.
No, we did that. We did
Never.
that last
Okay,
yeah, anyway, so if anyone has thoughts or like concerns, but I'll report back with the ideas that I have talked to Arnold directly. I've been hoping to schedule a call with him before I meet with the students. But if anyone has any ideas or concerns, feel free to send them my way and I'll share a whole bunch of this.
first. All right, well, thank you very much. Under unfinished business, we have it has been brought up more than once about an alternative meeting location that is less intimidating than a courthouse and provides people a feeling of safety, but also has the ease of communication. And I don't know if there's anybody that has anything to propose at this time. Yes, sir.
I was, a couple of things. One is that it was horribly, unfortunate that we had to cancel that February meeting right before our big, forum. I thought that was not good at all, in terms of the energy. My thought was, we have a budget of $7,000. Could we, number one, pay for this, for the security of, for that one night that the planning commission isn't in office, so we could not have to go through that. I don't know how much it would cost. And my second thought was that, the Sequoia Conference Center has a small venue or room there that would, if we, again, could spend some of our money to pay rent on a place like that, they have all the, the technology available, lots of parking, handicap accessible, all the 9 yards. So that's.
I have a couple of answers for you. I've been meeting with Steve Madrone and with the clerk of the board to try to prevent problems like that happening anymore. One thing I have now is a list of all the planning commission meetings for the whole year. We have traditionally been piggybacked on with them, but we've not always been notified in a timely manner of when they're going to cancel a meeting. And that's what happened for our February. We're now on a mailing list from the planning commission. When they notify the board of supervisors of a cancellation, we will also be notified. Hopefully that'll be more than a day or two's notice. Second part of that is I haven't well, Tracy D'Amico has reached out to the sheriff's office, who is the one that's in charge of security for the building, to find out just exactly what the costs are involved. And I've told her that if it didn't exceed 2 or 3 times a year, which would be bad, we might be able to fund it depending on what that amount is. And so even if the planning commission should cancel, there's no reason why we couldn't go ahead and meet anyway. Maybe we'd take the big chamber, I don't know. But
So the board pays, gives the planning department money so they can hire security, but they don't give you money to do that.
that's correct. Yeah, that's exactly right. And is it fair? Absolutely not. But there may be a way that we can work our way into this in a better way for the future.
At least they gave us some money this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have some. We've never had that before, so.
Yeah, that's,
So anyway, there are some things in the works to try to fix this. Tracy had suggested, well, maybe we should meet, we as a group should meet during the day when the building's open. I see a lot of problems with that because people that are working would not be able to. We might be competing with other groups for this space. I would just as soon leave it. My personal opinion is to leave it the way it is. Now,
Well, people who are working would be able to attend as far as public, right?
right, it would affect them as well. So anyway, it's a work in progress. I think we're going to be better informed in the future at the very minimum. And we should find out pretty soon what costs are involved. And if we're willing to pick up that cost when it does happen, I think we probably would want to do that. So, and that brings us back to the original discussion item. Is the courthouse the only place we can meet? And make people feel comfortable. The Humboldt Equity Consortium moved its meeting from City Hall to the Adorney Center for that very reason. We wanted a more neutral type of environment. It doesn't bother me particularly, but it's not me we're concerned about. It's the public. And I'm open to any and all thoughts on that. Yes.
I'll call Amanda at Sequoia and find out, you know, what they would charge, you know, on a monthly, you know, because, you know, what they would cost to, you know, rent a room there. And I couldn't be, I'm guessing not more than a couple $100. You know, I mean, and we'd be spending maybe $2,400 a year on a venue that is really, you know, way less intimidating than the courthouse. And,
Well, why don't you check into it and see what the options are?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
This seems to be an issue that will never die. We've been talking about this for at least a decade that I can think of. And how come it keeps popping up? Who is it that's telling us that they don't come here because they find it intimidating? Who is saying that to us?
I can't name them right now, but I've had 2 or 3 people say they wish that we would be in a more neutral environment. I don't know if maybe it isn't a problem, but if it is, we should not ignore it.
We've had a number of consumer-related hot button issues that we've talked about here, homeless in particular. And we've not had any problem getting representatives to come and share this room with us. We have so many problems that need solutions. This to me is like forever talking about the same issue.
Well, we don't have to change anything.
I
Just up for consideration.
I vote to stay here.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion. I make a motion that we stay here. We embrace this route.
I will second that because I would like the community, I would like us to be able to convince the community that this is the community's place. And
Absolutely,
this is where justice is served.
absolutely.
And this is not a place they should be afraid of.
That's exactly right.
It is a place that they should honor and want to come to.
Yes. I mean, I've led a number of mentally ill individuals through here to try and reduce down that fear, the objection. But you're right, this is our house.
Well, there is a motion on the floor and it's seconded to,
Did Erin have a comment?
No, sorry.
well, that's where discussion comes in. Is there any discussion on the motion?
That's fine with me. I'll just cancel my, promising to call this lady.
Well, it's still not out of the woods in terms of unexpected cancellations, but as a general policy, we will
Well,
continue to.
yeah, but it'd be real difficult for us to get it in short-term notice.
That's true.
So I think
Any other,
burden.
any other comments or opinions? Okay, all of those in favor of continuing our meeting space here in the courthouse for the foreseeable future? I guess that's properly worded.
One more discussion.
A little more discussion.
What happens in situations, where there is a couple of cancellations? Does that mean that we just have to, you're gonna still, and I hate the fact that we might have to cancel some of our meetings, in the people's place.
We take some money and we pay for it.
Okay, well,
That's why, I agree with that too.
Yeah.
If we can pay for it, that's great.
well, let's resolve one question at a time. There is a motion on the floor. All those in favor of continuing to meet here, please raise your hand. Five. Any opposed? Abstentions? 3, okay, 4, I'm sorry. Oh, it is carried then. Okay, now to address the other question. This is the schedule for the planning commission for the year. They are, unless they cancel for some unknown reason, they are meeting on the first part of April, the first part of May, the first part of June. They are not meeting the first meeting in July.
Which would be July.
Oh, yes, it is. Yeah, right, which is understandable. And so we wouldn't be either. Oh,
Well, where do you meet labor? That month, I mean, it seems that we would.
They meet as an alternative, they meet on the 18th of July, which is also a Thursday, I believe, but it's 2 weeks later. We might have to discuss rescheduling our meeting so that we don't have a conflict. Back in August, they're meeting again. But in September, they are not. I'm not sure what September 5th is, but what?
No, it's a Thursday.
Yeah, I don't know what that one is about. So there's 2 dates that are in, then October, they're meeting. And November, they're meeting, December, they're meeting. So there's 2 dates that are questionable. We have time to consider this more in the future. Anyway, it's more information than we've ever had before. So I feel like we're making progress. The other thing that has been hanging out there for a while is the message line adaptation for additional languages. IT is working on it. They are ready to meet with me to see what we need and how we want to proceed. So that's really all I have to report there. And is there anything new business wise that you particularly want to be on the next agenda?
I'd like, at some point to see how, mental health is gonna respond to the cuts that are coming because of the passages.
Did it pass?
It's up by 2 percentage points, and it's likely it's gonna pass. And,
Well, we could still have the same speaker who would have presented,
yes,
which is your daughter.
She would send someone.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll include that. Maybe we're two possible guests in the near future are Sheriff Hansel and somebody from DHHS. So I'll contact both of them and see where we can place them in the agenda.
I'd like to, are we gonna develop an agenda for the sheriff? Before we invite him, or share with him or not?
It would be very much like what we did with the police chiefs. We can do something different if we have time. If you have any ideas.
It was interesting, sad actually, to hear the EPD chief talk about the emergency room impact from the mentally ill. I'd like to hear more about that, but one of the things that struck me about his comment was that his people would take somebody to jail, and if they're appropriate, they would then transfer them to temporary irons. And I'm really curious, under what circumstances that would be for the sheriff. Under what circumstance would they transfer somebody to the acute inpatient unit rather than keeping?
Well, some of the very same questions we went over with them tonight, we can share it with Sheriff Hansel. One of his reasons for wanting to be with us is to discuss the incident that took place in Humboldt not too long ago, which, so that's one of the reasons he was approached. Guy's been really good about securing people, and that's what we do with that. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to be taken off the homelessness behavioral health committee, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're gone. Not complete. Okay. Any other business to bring up before the commission tonight?
I just wanted to kind of piggyback a little bit off of Lance's comment about patients who are in the hospital and are either transferred there to go to the jail and then possibly to SV. But what happens with minors?
Minors.
Yeah, minors, because they wouldn't be going to SV or very seldom. And what happens with that?
There's no secure place for
Right,
children.
so what happens if there are minors who are in a hospital and aren't safe to be there? What happens with them?
I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm so deaf.
No, I can speak up. So I'm just wondering if a hospital has a minor and they need to go elsewhere because of behavioral health issues. Do they go to the juvenile hall? Is it similar to what happens at the jail? Or is it, or they didn't go to SV? And so they are just transferred out of the county at that point?
Yes. There's a children's hospital in one in Santa Rosa, of course. There's another one inland in the Central Valley, and that's the one typically that is most used. It's become a for-profit industry.
Yeah.
Because developing acute inpatient unit for kids is ridiculously expensive. So that's what happens. They put them in an ambulance, and if necessary, strap them down, and they drive them 5 hours.
They just hang out at the hospital then.
That's all.
That's the vision of sorrel leaf. Yeah. Yeah. Is there a? Does anybody know?
But thankfully, it is a rare kid that needs to go into an acute patient unit, you do rec services with them. You don't want to put them in jail, and you don't want to lock them up, you don't want to trap them down, you want to just take care of them.
Yeah.
And so by and large, that's what you do. Now, I don't know what children's mental health, now that it's been sectioned over to social services, not mental health. I don't know what their policies and procedures are. We used to actually have, it was terrific, we had a residential facility for kids just like what you're talking about, over on Harris Street, and it worked like a charm. It was wonderful. And I don't know why they closed it, but they did.
I think they're building, I think some of they're building like an 8 or 10 bed facility.
You mean in Mad River?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the rumor mill.
yeah. Well, yeah.
Somebody's gotta buy
It
it.
sounded like a great,
No one has the money. They have to buy it. No one's got the money for that.
Okay, it sounds as though it's time for us to adjourn our meeting.
Yeah.
And thank you all for your participation. And
Thank you, Jacob.
thank you, Lisa, for joining us from wherever you are.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Have a nice evening.